So we are right now at this point, we are left with Detroit.
Yeah.
15% turnout rate average.
Yeah.
And then all the surrounding areas that are hard Trump country, many thousands of registered voters that we see there, 80% average turning up to vote. And we know that that's obviously heavily Trump. But then we get to the bottom here, and all of a sudden Detroit comes back. But do you notice something? 0 registered voters, NA. As far as percent of vote turnout. 0 registered voters. And by the way, these are much bigger than the precincts before. 2,500 votes, 1,900 votes, 2,100 votes. Some of these are up to like 3,000 votes, 3,400 votes, 3,300 votes, 2,100 votes, 2,300 votes, 2,900 votes with 0 registered voters and the percent of voter turnout. This, by the way, these numbers here that have 0 registered voters, no data whatsoever that you could match against, let's say if you were doing some kind of canvassing, if you were doing some kind of actual recount, there'd be no way to actually check because there are 0 registered voters in the books. This totals up to around 173,000 voters. Again, look, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, that's the AVCB, which is the absentee voters counting ballot. What's the counting bureau? I forgot what the actual acronym is for here, but let me bring this up here.
It's the counting board.
It's the counting board.
Bureau.
So they would say, okay, hold on a second. So this is their argument. Well, that's from the absentee ballots. Okay, We've made 2 calls to county boards and to people who were handling these elections, and we were not able to get through to anybody. Yep. It still doesn't give you any reason as to why they wouldn't have registered voters at all. Let's assume for a second that all these votes came in really quickly, like drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. You still have, long before election, registered voters. That's how they do the polls, right? The liberal polls were doing registered voters instead of doing likely voters. So that doesn't change the fact that that data shouldn't read 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And this totals 173,000 votes from 0 registered voters in those precincts. So what are we left with? We're left with the Detroit precincts where we have some data on registered voters. Okay, we know the registered voters and a 15% turnout rate average. Then we have heavy Trump country, Grosse Pointe, places like Livonia, places like Canton, right? Places where you would have working middle class, some union guys, but people who whisked Trump into the White House last election with an 83% average voter turnout rate. So Detroit, we have numbers for some reason, 15% voting rate. The other areas where it would be white, working class, blue-collar Trump voters, 85% voter turnout rate. Then 0 in all of these absentee ballots, 0 registered voters, which give us 173,000 votes from 134 ABCBs. Now, keep in mind that late on election night, in the middle of the night, there was a ballot dump with about 150,000 ballots.
Yeah.
All for Biden.
Yeah.
Less than 4%, about 3% took place for were actually cast for Donald Trump. That doesn't occur anywhere in nature. No. You could have an election in America's Communist Party and Donald Trump would get more than 3% of the vote. So this area where there's no way to actually check these votes at all, no registered voters, and we have a dump. I want to make sure I get this number right. 150,000 votes on election night, less than 6,000 for Trump. That's about 3% of the votes. And you want to say there are no irregularities? There's no reason to count this? Well, those are just absentees, so they're from ACVB. So, hold on a second. Why don't you have registered voters? Furthermore, do you know what the average turnout rate would have to be for these absentee ballots? 100%.
Wow.
It would have to be 100% for these remaining votes, and they would all have to go to Biden. Assuming it would have to be more than 100%, because if there's one vote that comes in that's higher than that's already 200%, because it's 0. There are no registered voters, and it all tipped. All the data that we do have available for us, which, by the way, you should have in elections, and most counties do. This is just a rule of Wayne County, by the way. If you have more than 250 precincts, then the other ones can just be they can just be ACVBs, whatever it's called, absentee ballot counting. And at that point, you can just count them as much as you want, take them as they come in. But why don't you have registered voters? And how can we understand the voter turnout rate? We have 3 turnout rates right now. Okay. We have Detroit, registered voters, about 15% turnout rate. We have everywhere else in Wayne County, deeply red, we have an over 80% turnout rate. And then we have a third turnout rate, which is NA, because 150,000 votes came in the middle of night from 0 registered voters.